Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the BATTASS podcast, the Batman the Animated Series show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series. We've been on quite a bit of a hiatus lately, and this is a bit of a bummer way to start our new season. But we want to, Sean's here. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, good. Been better.
Yeah. We wanted to do a little bit of a special episode talking about Kevin Conroy, who I'm sure everybody knows by this point, passed away not too long ago. The voice of Batman for, close
30
to
plus years.
Yeah, 30
Yep.
years.
Yep.
The most identified actor with the role, probably to a lot of people.
Yeah.
He obviously we've been talking about this show, Batman the Animated Series, for since before Donald Trump was president. So it's been a while.
Yeah. I think during Obama, I think we started to be free for Trump. Yeah. It's funny. I didn't think we'd be talking about Trump in this podcast
Well,
today.
hopefully it'll be the only time it comes up. But
Yeah.
so we've been deep in this for a long time, and before that, obviously we've both been big fans of his work, and so we just wanted to talk about him a little bit and what he means to the role and what he means to people.
Ironically, I floated this out a few episodes ago where Toronto convention was tossing the idea around about Clay and I coming up to Toronto to pay for our flights and hotel rooms and stuff. And then we would do a live recorded some kind of recorded podcast with Kevin Conroy on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And Clay and I were jazzed about that. Of course, I'd love to, talk to Conroy, but the show wasn't able to make it happen. So Clay you ended up not going to Canada. I did, just for my own, business reasons. Then Conroy canceled. And, obviously yesterday I found out, he literally canceled because of cancer, which he kept as a secret for a long time. I'm not sure if many people knew about it. I'm not sure many people even knew Kevin was gay until the last 2 years.
I didn't. I definitely didn't. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed like he was a pretty private person with his personal life anyway.
Yeah. I tried to look up his husband. So he got married. His husband's name, I forget, but I Googled him. He might be a lawyer in Manhattan. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking through photos, and I never found a photo of Kevin with his husband or anything like that. So, pretty private guy. There's more photos of him with other voice actors like Tara Strong hanging out at conventions than there is personal stuff, which, I respect.
Yeah, it's always, I think when you get to the point that he's at, or a lot of these actors get to, you have to kind of make a decision about where you want to draw the line with that stuff.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know this. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
A little fun story. He told a story somewhere. I'm happy to be corrected on this if I get some of this wrong. But Conroy was friends with Christopher Reeves. And
oh, really?
Christopher Reeves had an airplane, and Conroy was hanging out with Reeves, flying around on a Cessna, A to B, wherever that was. And when they landed, Reeves found out that he got Superman role or something like that. I remember hearing this story kind of recently. I hope I'm getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of funny that years later, Kevin walks into a audition for a character he doesn't really know much about. And it's like, what do you mean, man? You were friends with Christopher Reeves before he became Superman. You didn't try to look into some other comics. You didn't see that role would be lucrative. But obviously he ended up totally coming through and elevating Batman. Well, him and everyone else who made that show obviously ended up elevating Batman to a level that's hard to beat.
Yeah. And I guess it would make sense that he was friends with Christopher Reeve. He went to Juilliard in 1973, and he was there with quite a few names. He roomed with Robin Williams, and he was in the same group as Kelsey Grammer. And I know Christopher Reeve was there as well at the same time. So a lot of big names there around that time. And
Yeah.
he did a lot of, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like when you get something like this, you can
Hmm.
either push away from it or lean into it.
Yeah.
As far as your legacy is concerned,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because he did so much. He did a whole bunch of TV stuff. Like I actually years ago, I think I talked about this on the podcast at some point when I was
Cheers.
watching. What's that?
Was it Cheers?
Yes, yeah, I was watching through Cheers, and I wasn't even. I had my head down when this character came in, but then he started talking, and I was like, wait a minute, I know that voice. And it was Kevin Conroy, and he looked so different because obviously it was like 30 something years ago, and he looked like he was a big dude. He was like jacked. He was very athletic looking,
Yeah.
and it was so funny to see him in a role that you actually got to watch him act because he's
Yeah.
so recognizable as a voice actor. And
Mm.
he did mostly TV from the late 70s through the early 90s, and then
Mm.
kind of once he got into voice acting, that was kind of how everything went from that point. Because obviously he's very good at it, and he did a lot of Batman. He's
Yeah.
he's one of those actors where I feel like his voice is probably a bit of a blessing and a curse, because on the
Mm.
one hand, he's fantastic as Batman, but on the other hand, you can't exactly just cast him for literally anything because he sounds like Batman. Like
Yeah.
it's like how the voice of Lisa Simpson only does Lisa's voice on The Simpsons
Oh man.
because
Yeah.
she has
Thank
such a
God for Matt
distinct
Groening.
she has such a distinctive voice that it's difficult to um the what's it's difficult to suspend your disbelief hearing that voice coming out of another character.
Yeah.
But he leaned into it, and he
Mm.
became the defining Batman for
Mhm.
many people. At least as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, Michael Keaton has always been my number one, but Kevin
Mhm.
Conroy is definitely number two.
I remember in college, a female friend who liked the animated series as well. She did a deep dive into Kevin Conroy, and she found some movie he did where his character's on the phone having phone sex.
Oh
And she
God.
was like, it was so weird hearing Batman's voice be like, "Oh yeah, give it to me," blah blah blah. I didn't see it myself. Probably easy to track down though. But
I'm
when you and I
surprised that
talked
hasn't.
about,
I'm just
yeah,
gonna say I'm
right,
surprised that hasn't made it to the internet. Yeah.
when you and I talked about interviewing him in Toronto, you said because you're always a smartass, that you're just going to interview him about his role in Cheers for 60 minutes straight
Hmm.
and not let him get onto any other topic.
Honestly, I would wonder if he would not have preferred that to some extent, because how many different ways can you answer the question, so what's it like being the voice of Batman? Well, it's an honor, and it's a
Yeah,
character loved by so many people. If we had been like, tell us about being on Cheers, do you think he would have lit up and been like, Rhea Perlman, nicest
yeah,
person I've ever met in my life. Kelsey
yeah,
Grammer, total asshole. He's a friend of mine from school though.
yeah. That's fair. Um, yeah,
I've
it's
been
funny.
listening to sorry, I was just gonna say I've been listening to um Quentin Tarantino's new podcast that he's been doing.
Mhm,
And one of the things that he was talking about as a tactic of his when he first got to Hollywood,
mhm,
and he said it served him quite well, is any person that he met, like any famous person, actor or whatever, he would
mhm.
pull the deepest, most
Right.
obscure reference he could possibly pull from their
Yeah,
career, and that would be the thing that he talked to them about. And he said almost every time they would light up and go, "Oh my God, no one's ever asked me about that before." And then, which
yeah,
is like,
yeah.
so I was on the
Yeah, that's
right
fair.
track. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I think I said before, when Paul Newman used to walk the red carpet, reporters used to try to get him over to talk, and he
Right.
just
Yeah.
wasn't interested in doing that. But if you shouted at him and asked him a car question, he
Hmm.
would beeline over and start talking about racing.
Yeah.
And then you could slip in your acting question. Um, yeah, I can. So my friend Jeff got me a cameo last year, which you pay Kevin, for 3 minutes, and he talks to you, or records a personal video, or whatever. And he read out loud some of my lines from White Knight, which was amazing. And if you go on Twitter right now and follow SGM Art Sales, you'll see that Jeff posted it. I also posted it on my Instagram. And it was amazing to hear Kevin, who has like a direct line to my childhood heartstrings, read a book that would not have done without him. So you think of it that way, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then I could tell like that was all new. Kevin Conroy. He's never read those lines. He's never probably read a comic. Oh, I'm sure he has actually. But then he went into rehearsed Kevin, but you couldn't really tell because he skipped into like, oh man, that's such fun to read. Thank you so much for the honor of reading your comic. Yeah, playing Batman for 30 years and blah blah blah. Like he just went into it. It
Right.
seemed very
Yeah.
genuine. And as a
Yeah.
good actor, I know he knows how to make that seem fresh every time. But you could tell like where his rehearsed bullet point was and what was brand new content, so to speak. And
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And I listened to almost every interview Carl Sagan ever did, to the point where I know which bullet point he's about to launch into. Um, and Sagan was probably a genius in a lot of ways. But every now and then he would do an interview with Charlie Rose, and he would accidentally slip into the wrong bullet point and not answer the question he was asked. And I know Sagan's not dumb. I know he's got good answers for everything, but I think you just get tired and you go into your routine. And what's nice about Kevin in that cameo, I'm imagining, anytime he does an interview about Batman, he speaks about it with such warmth and fondness that it makes it sound fresh. It doesn't sound like he's just going through the hoops.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm sure he wouldn't have done it for as long as he did if he didn't, love doing it.
Yeah.
And there's stories that he tells about,
Yeah.
after 9/11, working on a food line for the cops or something, and then someone was like, "Wait a minute, is this fucking Batman?" And then he got up and he did the "I am vengeance" line, and the whole place went nuts and all that kind of stuff. And so you find out what these things that seem like work to you mean to people the more you get out there and meet them.
Yeah. Whereas some actors can't be fucked to do that shit. Like, do you see,
Yeah.
William Shatner at a soup kitchen suddenly doing some lines from TOS,
I don't know. William Shatner now, maybe. William Shatner
Yeah.
like 40 years ago, maybe not. I could say 50 at this point. Jesus.
Yeah. That's fair.
But yeah, there are definitely some who kind of shy away from it. Like
Yeah.
not to compare careers or anything, but Conroy had the outlet to keep doing this in a way that it's not pigeonholing,
Mm-hmm.
but like I feel like him spending 30 years doing Batman is different than Christopher Reeve doing 4 Superman movies and then kind of getting pigeonholed as the Superman guy. And I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's just the difference between you're seeing one of them and you're only hearing the other one. But I feel like Christopher Reeve needed to really fight hard to get away from Superman in a way that Kevin Conroy never really did with Batman. Although I could be completely wrong. I don't know how he felt about it personally, but I did think.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought I had heard, like a handful of years ago, that he and Mark Hamill both were retiring from the roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that was true for either of them. I think it was.
Yeah, they both came out of retirement.
I thought it was supposed to be like the last Arkham game was going to be the last thing that they did, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago, I think, at this point.
Every convention Stan Lee did was always his last convention. Same thing with William Shatner. Is the conventions know it's bullshit, but they like to put that in the headlines to get people to come in.
Yeah. Hey, I have a T-shirt. I have a T-shirt from Kiss's farewell tour from 2001. So
the first one.
Yeah, their first farewell tour in 2001.
Yeah, well, the original first of a series. Yeah, might be worth something, man.
Maybe, yeah.
Too, with voice acting too, like Christopher Reeves, if you're playing Superman, that's probably 8-year span of 4 movies. So you're waiting for script, coming with ideas, going to dinners, getting directors, getting funding, whatever. That's enough to keep you. So you're only shooting for maybe 6 months at a time, but you're doing a lot of other work around keeping the Superman brand going. So I could see Superman taking up a lot more time for Reeves than Batman takes up for Kevin, because Kevin might have only spent like you do one season of Batman in a long weekend. Just go to fly to wherever, sit in the booth, read the lines, read them different ways, and we'll pick the best ones. It's like I remember hearing I think it was John Goodman talk about doing Monsters Inc. And everyone has tied him to this character Sully, and it was so much warmth in their hearts. But for him, he's like, it was 3 days for me. I
Right.
came in, I
Yeah.
read the lines, I left. Like I don't. It's hard to empathize because I don't really have much connection to this like other people do. Like I'm not mired in the character. Uh,
Hmm.
like if I'm in a role, like in Big Lebowski. And I wonder if for Kevin, how many hours did he actually spend recording Batman? It seems like he's been working constantly on Batman for 30 years. But if you boil it all down, it might just be 6 months total compressed Batman time
Yeah.
and then a lot of free time. And I always wondered, why didn't Kevin do more film? Um,
He might not
or
have had to, honestly. I mean, maybe
honestly,
it might have
yeah,
been lucrative enough that you
yeah,
don't need to do anything else, just enjoy your
yeah.
life.
Like he spent more time hour per hour going to conventions as Batman than he did actually recording Batman. Guaranteed.
Probably. Probably, yeah.
Absolutely. Flights, doing 6 shows a year, cameos. I mean, there's good money in that. I mean, maybe the stress of being behind or in front of the camera is just not worth it, especially if you're dealing with cancer in the later years of your life. Maybe it's easier just to show up, record for a few days, and then leave, and then you just make your money for the year. Totally plausible.
Yeah. It's so strange. It must be so interesting,
Yeah.
flattering, but also maybe a little, I don't know if it's annoying at a certain point, but like to
Yeah.
just have, there are so many other people out there who have and could play Batman, but you are
Hmm.
the one that people just keep going back to. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I know when I was watching the animated series, once it switched over, once the animated was over and Batman Beyond I think was over at this point, and they started up
Hmm.
the Batman.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
of the main things that turned me off was that it wasn't Kevin Conroy doing Batman's voice.
Yeah.
And I know it wouldn't have fit because I think he's supposed to be younger or something, but
Hmm.
it just, you go in and you see Batman and you have a certain expectation of what it's going to sound like in animated form, and if it doesn't, you kind of go,
Yeah.
well, this
Yeah.
is fine, I guess. Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of any of the DC animated movies where he's not doing Batman, you're kind of like, well, yeah, that's fine, I
Mhm.
guess.
I don't really play a lot of video games, so I didn't play any of the Arkham games. When I
Hmm.
saw a clip of Kevin Conroy as, SWAT team jacked up Batman, it always felt wrong to me. Like for
It
it to
is.
work, it feels like it needs to be Bruce Timm animated.
It does feel weird. When I started playing the Arkham games,
Yeah.
I actually did think, I don't know if this is the best fit for him.
Yeah.
Hamill's a little bit easier to swallow as
Mhm.
the Joker from those games.
Yeah.
But even so, it's still like, I don't know. There's something
Hmm.
something doesn't quite fit about this iteration of Batman with that
Hmm.
voice coming out of it.
But to Gen
That's
Z, it's seamless. They know more about Arkham than they do about the animated series. So for them, it's totally seamless.
right, right,
In
yeah,
fact, it's probably weird to watch the animated series.
yeah, I know. Um,
Yeah.
the he only got to play Batman, or Bruce Wayne rather, live action once,
Hmm.
which was fun, which was in the Crisis on Infinite Earths series that they did on the CW DC shows a couple years ago.
He was terrible. Just kidding. I didn't see it.
Well, it was interesting because they kind of played on your expectations, because they go into this universe where Kevin Conroy is Bruce Wayne, and
Mhm.
Batwoman and Supergirl go to talk to him because it's like, oh, Bruce Wayne, we got to go. He's obviously Batman. We got to, and he ends up being the villain of the episode. And you're
Oh,
not really ready for it when you hit that
huh.
turn where it's like, oh shit, this is
Yeah.
everybody's Batman father is the bad guy.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see him in
Yeah.
that role. I would love to know how he felt about it, if it was like just another thing, or if he was
Mhm.
happy to finally get to put his face with the character, or what.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's an interview out there that we haven't seen yet. Talking about fatherhood roles, that's a very fine point on something I've been trying to wrap my head around the last 2 days. Is Kevin Conroy's death? I wasn't expecting it this soon, but I knew one day 20 years from now, Kevin was gonna probably pass away, and how
Mm-hmm.
tough that would be. And I dreaded it like I almost dread losing Patrick Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what is it about these two actors and the roles they played? And the thing I keep coming back to is the fatherhood role, where you were some kind of mentor, where, you know, hard for a lot of people is their surrogate dad, their moral compass. Like, uh, you carry them around with you in your head as moral co-pilots. Like, they help you every day. You're like, all right, part of you thinks like, man, what would Picard do right now? What would Batman do? What would Batman say about this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of weird to think of it that way, but I think that is the kind of characters that we're talking about here. These characters are way beyond their show. They become part of the psychology of a generation, and they take you with them in a way that's like more than a cult even. Um, and I don't know if actors ever like you have to just sort of stumble into that role, honestly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like as much as Patrick Stewart probably kills it doing a lot of Shakespeare, I mean, let's face it, the thing he's going to be known for is Card, and even Professor X to a similar degree. And I wonder when Kevin realized, oh shit, like these people are not just coming up to me getting autographs, they're in tears. They're asking advice.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, if you listen to the Kevin Smith any one where he starts breaking down in tears with Kevin Conroy, it happened a few times. Kevin must have realized, oh man, I'm part of something much bigger than I ever anticipated. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart realized it too. I'm not sure when William Shatner dies if he has that uh, pull with BOS fans. Maybe he does. Maybe I'm the wrong generation. But something
Yeah.
about the way Picard handled it and Kevin Conroy handled it, it put him in another level of being an actor.
I think Shatner does for a lot of people, but I think he's obviously been around a lot longer, so I think there's a lot
Hmm.
of space between those things.
Hmm.
Where you know, I
Spock
mean,
is.
Spock is definitely, yes,
That's what's
yeah.
interesting. Is Spock, the character was written to talk about morality and the human condition more than Kirk was. But Picard
Yeah.
was meant to talk more about the human condition than Data. I mean, Data still has something to say, but really the meat of it is on Picard's shoulders.
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, it is always fascinating to me
Yeah.
when you feel like, when as an actor, if you're in one of those roles, do you realize that
Hmm.
it is bigger than the work you put on the screen, and
Yeah.
how do you wrap your mind around dealing
Right.
with that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, I try to think of other actors who have that role. It's hard to think of more than a handful. Like for me, when I became an atheist, I needed another thing to fill my head with, and I fell into Henry Rollins for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Not his music, but his spoken word. I needed to hear someone who had a way of looking at the world that was tough and aggressive and kind of black and white, kind and fair, but intense. And Rollins hit me at the right time, where I guess you could have said he was sort of like a father figure in my brain that I needed. And then I moved on from him to Carl Sagan. Um, and I'm trying to think of who else out there has this weight with people. Certainly musicians can, like when Dave Bowie passes, people start reading through his lyrics and they start really feeling
Mm-hmm.
connected. Roles like that. And again, it's not something you can plan for. It just sort of has to happen. And I think these actors must be like, oh shit, I'm this guy now. Who do I talk to about this? Because
Right,
most
yeah,
actors have no
yeah.
idea what it's like to lead a cult in a way like Patrick Stewart. Cult's not a good, you know what I'm trying to say though, right?
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that's interesting about it is, like, there seems to be more of it now because
Mhm.
these types of roles are becoming a lot more prevalent.
Right.
And there's almost like a support network for it at these conventions, where it's like
Yeah.
the guy who plays Loki can talk to the guy who plays Batman about what it's like
Hmm.
dealing with fans in Ohio or something. You know, it's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's it is a fascinating life
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to lead, and
Right.
be able to keep to be able to keep yourself private enough
Hmm.
that you can enjoy that side of it, and you can also enjoy your personal life
Yeah.
is impressive.
But even if Patrick Stewart's hanging out with Hugh Jackman at conventions, which I'm sure they have, 'cause they're both in X-Men, they both have people come up to them in tears, and they both have
Oh,
people who
sure.
are super jazzed and lose their shit. But I don't think many people look to Hugh Jackman as a father figure who played a character that weighs on them about how to live their life, whereas Patrick Stewart has. So I'd say
Right. Yeah.
Stewart is a whole other level that Hugh Jackman can't really understand.
Yeah.
He must have witnessed it. He must be like, "Oh man, Pat, Jesus Christ! I thought I had crazy fans. Your fans are like asking you to like marry them and sign their Bibles. I mean, they it's almost like a religious experience when with Patrick Stewart. Whereas with Hugh Jackman, it's like, man, you're awesome. I love Wolverine. you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm still trying
One
to
of the
find a way
greatest.
to wrap my head around it because I think it really is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Obi-Wan
unfortunate.
Kenobi would have done it. Like Alec Guinness was certainly
Yep.
that guy. Um,
Well, I mean, even Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi has that kind of following to a certain extent at this point, I think.
you're right.
Alec Guinness, I don't think Alec Guinness
He
knew
wasn't.
or cared about it.
Yeah, he had that weight, and if the convention thing was in full swing back then, he would have felt it like Patrick Stewart for sure. But convention
If he had
culture,
gone, I don't think Alec Guinness would have stepped foot in a
okay.
comic book convention.
I don't know if he's a dick or not. He seems like a nice guy on camera.
I don't think that he's a dick. I don't think it's whether or not he's a dick. I just don't think he had much reverence for the role.
He was probably a dick though, right?
I don't know.
I'm kidding.
He's Alec Guinness. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small grouping of actors who play characters that affect
Right.
so many of the same people
Right.
in the same way, and I think Kevin Conroy is definitely one of those where regardless of your the other stuff that you like, if your Venn diagram crosses into Batman, you have some sort of connection to him.
Yeah.
And he's 66 is way too young, and be a big loss for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think that probably does it for us here. Thanks for listening to us blab about this and try to
one
wrap
shout
our
out
heads around it.
To we wanted to mention Conroy wrote a short story in 2022 called Finding Batman, and it's a comic, and I think it's free. Just Google it right now and you'll find it on Comixology or whatever. It's about his experience getting the role of Batman, what it meant to him. I have not read it. I wish I had. I only discovered it like this morning. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw a couple people putting tweeting pages from it or something. So I would definitely check it out and take a look at it. But thank you guys for listening, and we will be back next week with the official start of season 2 of Batman Beyond. Thanks, guys. We'll see you then.
One day when I leave you a note like this, what would I say? Probably something that tries to protect you. Something you can draw upon in your darker moments. Something that will make up for my mistakes. Something about why I still fight as Batman. That it isn't out of a duty to avenge my parents. The reason I keep fighting is for you. Because I want to leave you a safer Gotham that you can be proud of. So that one day you can take off the masks. Okay, Sean, that reading was booked by your friend Jeffrey Martin because he so admires all the work you do and how much you've accomplished. And I have to say that's beautiful writing, and it was a privilege to read it. I feel so fortunate to play this character for 30 years, to inhabit this man, this complicated, conflicted, damaged man. Who just wants to leave the world a better place. So good luck, Sean, with all your work. And remember, it's not what you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you. Take care.